It was the summer of 1987 when Sarah Whitmore vanished from her bedroom, and I've spent the last 11 years of my life trying to figure out if the words she left on her wall in pink chalk were a confession, a warning, or a translation. The case went cold, obviously. The police, my editors, even my own father, they all chalked it up to a classic runaway situation. Sarah was 17, rebellious, and had bought a Greyhound ticket to Reno with cash 2 days before she disappeared. Case closed, but I knew Sarah. I was her cousin, but more than that, I was her confidant. And Sarah would never have painted her own wall with the words, "They are not the first to listen," in perfect, italicized cursive. She was a terrible speller, and she burned her hand on a firework when she was 12, leaving a scar that made her grip on a piece of chalk shaky and uncertain. The police photos from that night don't show the thing that's been haunting me for over a decade. They show a normal pink bedroom, a bay window half open, and a single line of text. But the audio recording, the one the police made under the guise of evidence documentation, was what got me fired from my true crime podcast. It was the sound of the room itself, a low hum like a refrigerator. But beneath that hum, if you layered the track and slowed it down, you could hear a child laughing and a woman sobbing in a language I didn't recognize. I lost my job because I started calling the Whitmore house every night at 3:03 a.m., the exact time Sarah was last seen. Not because I was trying to be creepy, but because the first time I called the landline out of pure grief, a voice answered. It wasn't a dial tone, it wasn't a human voice. It was static that parted like a curtain, and then I heard Sarah breathing. She didn't speak. She just breathed, and then she said, "Don't look at the glass, look through it." Then the line went dead. For 11 years, I've been the only one who calls that number. Last week, they finally disconnected it, so I decided to go back to the house. The house is at the end of Cedar Lane, a suburb that survived the 80s without changing. The oak trees have grown massive, swallowing the streetlights, making the asphalt look like a river of black tar at dusk. The for sale sign in the yard has been up for so long the metal posts have rusted, bleeding orange stains onto the grass. I had a key. Sarah's mom, my Aunt Carol, refused to sell it, but she also refused to ever step foot inside again. She gave me the key years ago, telling me, "You're the only one who loved her enough to be haunted by her." The air inside the house was thick. Not dusty, that's what you'd expect from an empty house. It was solvent, like the air had been thickened with acetone or ozone. The carpet in the hallway was stained with the memory of old furniture, and the silence was so profound I could hear my own heartbeat in my eardrums. I walked to Sarah's room. The door was closed the way they found it. I turned the knob. The brass was cold, colder than the ambient air, and pushed. The room was untouched. The bed was made with the floral comforter she loved. The posters of New Order and Depeche Mode were still taped to the walls, the edges curling in a way that felt like they were reaching out. And there on the wall, the pink chalk. The words were still there, vivid and sharp, as if written yesterday. "They are not the first to listen." But now there was a new addition. Underneath it, in the same perfect cursive, was a single word: "Yet." My blood went cold. In 11 years, no one had been in this room. The chalk had been sealed under a protective layer of varnish by the police. There was no way to write on it, but there it was, a black carbon deposit like the dust from a burnt match. I stared at the word for a long time, my brain refusing to process the implication. The room was a tomb, but something was talking to me. I pulled out my phone, the recorder app, the one I've used for every episode of my show. I pressed the red button. I asked, "Sarah, are you here?" The silence was brutal. But then, through the speaker of my own phone, I heard a sound that didn't come from the room. It came from the acoustic space of the room as captured by the phone. It was a squelch, like a wet finger dragging across a balloon, then a whisper. Not her name anymore. I dropped the phone. The room was still silent. I knelt down, my knees cracking in the oppressive quiet, and I looked at the bay window. The glass was black, reflecting the room back at me. I could see my own reflection, a tired man in his 30s with a perpetually worried brow, and behind my reflection I saw a shadow. It was the shape of a person, but it was stooped, its head tilted at an angle that made my neck ache in sympathy. It was standing behind me in the corner of the room, and it was just. Listening, I remembered Sarah's words. "Don't look at the glass, look through it." I forced myself not to look at the reflection. I looked at the darkness beyond the pane of glass. At first, I saw the overgrown backyard, the silhouette of a kid's swing set, rusted and motionless. But then I saw a light, a single point of light glowing from the base of an old oak tree about 60 feet away. It was electric blue, pulsing with a rhythm like a slow heartbeat. I knew I had to go out there. It was stupid, it was dangerous, but the cold feeling in my gut told me that this was the answer. I left the house through the back door, the screen slamming in the still air. The grass was wet, soaking through my sneakers and chilling my ankles. The light pulsed in the dark, leading me forward. As I got closer, I realized the light wasn't coming from a lamp or a ground light. It was coming from a pair of eyes. The eyes belonged to an animal, but not any animal I knew. It was the size of a large dog, but its body was sleek, like a weasel, and its coat was a color that didn't reflect the moonlight. It absorbed it. The eyes were electric blue, and they were focused on me with an intelligence that was far too human. It didn't move. It just stared, and as I stared back, I realized the light coming from its eyes wasn't just light, it was sound. I could feel it vibrating in my teeth, a subsonic hum that made the fillings in my molars ache. The creature opened its mouth. It didn't make a sound, but I felt the pressure change in my ears, and then from the house I heard the phone ring. The landline. The one that was disconnected. It rang 3 times, a sharp, shrill sound that cut through the night. And then an answering machine picked up. A machine that wasn't there. A machine that housed the voice of my Aunt Carol recorded years ago. Her message was upbeat. "Hi, you've reached the Whitmores. We can't come to the phone right now, but if you leave a message, we'll get back to you. Unless you're a telemarketer, then we'll just laugh at you." Then a beep. The silence that followed the beep was immense. The creature in front of me tilted its head, mirroring the shadow I saw in the glass. Then the answering machine clicked and a new voice came through. It was Sarah S., but layered as if the tape was slipping. "Cousin, you're here, good. They didn't want to let me leave. They liked the way I listen. They said I could have a new listener if I brought one. You're the first to actually come." My blood ran cold. I turned to run back to my car to get the hell out of that cursed suburb. But as I turned, I saw the backyard wasn't empty anymore. The swing set wasn't rusted anymore. It was swinging slowly back and forth as if a ghost child was riding it. But the chains were singing a tune, not a typical squeak. A melody. A lullaby I knew from my childhood, the one Sarah's mother used to sing to us. But it was sung in that same unrecognizable, sobbing language from the audio tape. I ran. I ran past the house, past the front porch, my lungs burning. I reached my car, fumbling for the keys. I slammed the door, locked it, and started the engine. The headlights cut through the darkness, and that's when I saw it. Written in fresh, pink chalk across the inside of my own windshield was a message. "Now you're the listener, they hear you too." I screamed. I swiped at the windshield, but the chalk was inside the glass. It was embedded in the glass. I looked in the rearview mirror, fully expecting to see the creature standing behind my car, but instead I saw my own face. And behind me in the back seat there was a new shadow. It cast itself over the headrest, a shape that looked exactly like the stooped figure from the bedroom window. It wasn't moving. It was just listening. I floored the gas pedal. I drove for 3 hours, and I didn't stop until I hit the city limits, my hands shaking the entire way. I haven't slept since. I wrote this down to document what happened, to keep my mind busy. But I know the truth now. Sarah isn't missing. She wasn't a runaway. She made a deal with something that lives under the old Whitman farm. It wanted another set of ears, another listener to share the stories it tells. And when I looked through the glass, I accidentally did the one thing that sealed my fate. I listened. I'm uploading this from a public library computer because I'm too afraid to go back to my apartment. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where I go, because I can hear it now. A low hum right at the edge of my hearing. It's coming from the vents in here, from the hum of the fluorescent lights. It's the same hum from the phone line. It's waiting for me to get tired. It's waiting for me to close my eyes. And it knows I'm the only one who can hear it. If you're listening to this, don't look at the glass. Don't listen to the static. And if you ever find yourself at the end of Cedar Lane, just keep driving, because they are not the first to listen, and I won't be the last.